The Conference Board Leading Index is objectively the single most reliable recession indicator that exists, with a perfect track record dating back more than 6 decades. The Conference Board Leading Index is a basket of 10 individual indicators that are each reliable in their own right, but when combined into one broad basket, the collection provides a smoother and more reliable signal about the future direction of the economy. The Conference Board Leading Index is comprised of individual indicators such as new building permits, the yield curve, new manufacturing orders, jobless claims, and yes, even stock prices. Each of these individual indicators have a relatively strong track record of forecasting changes in the economy, but any single indicator is subject to false signals and head fakes. However, when you take 10 indicators that are each reliable on their own, with a few false flags each, and aggregate them into one broad basket, the number of false signals is dramatically reduced to the point where there have been 0 false signals dating back to earlier than 1960. According to the Conference Board, when the 6-month growth rate of the Conference Board Leading Index drops below negative 4.5%, a recession signal is triggered. There were a few times when the Conference Board Leading Index fell into negative territory, like in 1967, 1995, 1998, and 2016, but not sufficiently below the negative 4.5% threshold. There has not been one instance where that negative 4.5% recession threshold was breached when the economic cycle did not conclude in a hard landing. Now, just as the famous saying goes, there are long and variable lags, and variable comes with an element of unpredictability. This leading index, or any leading index for that matter, won't tell you the exact date and time that the economy will descend into the deepest part of the recession, but the extremely reliable forward-looking signal should not be taken for granted. The Conference Board Leading Index currently has a smooth 6-month growth rate of negative 7.5%, well into the recessionary range. The narrative in the economy has swung violently over the past year from recession to no recession, back to recession, and now the conventional wisdom is back into the no recession camp, driven almost entirely by the performance of the stock market when economic fundamentals have clearly not changed. The leading index is still mired deeply in negative territory. Every time the economic narrative swings back to the no recession theme, conventional wisdom is quick to declare that this time is different and these historically reliable indicators no longer work. The Conference Board LEI has declined for 20 consecutive months, only surpassed by the 1974 and 2008 recessionary periods. There are instances when the leading index declined and then started to rise again, like in 1967, and this is the definition of a soft landing. Currently, it's in vogue to say that these indicators have failed, when they have not even stopped declining yet. If the leading index starts to sustainably rise again, without a recession occurring, then the index would have, for the first time, provided a false signal, but that has not happened yet. The Conference Board Leading Index has been below the negative 4.5% threshold for 14 consecutive months, again only surpassed by the 1974 and 2008 recessionary periods. To be perfectly clear, these indicators are much more reliable at spotting directional turning points rather than magnitude. So while this index certainly continues to forecast weaker conditions ahead, a deeply negative reading doesn't necessarily tell us how bad the recession will be. While no single indicator has as reliable of a forecasting record as the Conference Board LEI, the next best contender is the 10-year 3-month yield spread. When the yield curve inverts, a recession generally lurks around the corner with the usual long and variable lags. The 10-year 3-month spread doesn't hold the title of a perfect indicator given the false contraction in 1967, but the indicator is both causative and predictive of recessionary periods. So not only would the Conference Board LEI have to be proven wrong this time, the second most reliable indicator, one that can actually cause economic downturns through impacts on bank lending and bank profitability, would also have to fall short. Coming in third place as a reliable indicator is the lesser-known gross domestic income, or real GDI. Everyone knows about GDP, but GDI is a lesser-known but more reliable measure of the economy. Real GDP and real GDI are supposed to match perfectly, but they often have what's called a statistical discrepancy. And most often when that discrepancy grows large, it's gross domestic income that proves to be the more reliable. Going back to 1950, each time the year-over-year growth rate of real GDI moves into negative territory, a recession is already underway with no exceptions. The reason that this is not a better indicator than the Conference Board Leading Index is because it's not leading, and the information comes with a lag. So again, we should not take today's negative 0.1% growth rate lightly. Now, many people will immediately point to real GDP, which has increased in recent quarters, and this is certainly true. Real GDP has increased to 2.9% on a year-over-year basis, which is strong ammunition for the no recession camp. However, real GDP and real GDI are supposed to be the same, so when they diverge, which one should we use? It's common practice to use an average of the two, which is certainly appropriate, but when divergences are large, the correct answer historically has been with real GDI. Famously, heading into the 2008 recession, real GDI growth was falling while real GDP growth was increasing, a similar divergence to today, and real GDI was the one that proved correct. Most people's perception of the economy and the risk of recession is taken directly from the most recent weekly stock market performance, and that is understandable as long and variable lags often cause too much fatigue. People throw in the towel among the fear of missing out and succumb to this time is different thinking. While it's true that this time could always be different and rules are certainly meant to be broken, a host of the most reliable indicators available to use have not changed their tune about what may be lurking around the economic corner.